Good morning and welcome to our webinar this morning. My name is Matt Minner. I'm with Catalyst Connection, and today we're talking with Peakboard, and our webinar today is focused on the whole topic of are you ready to transform your production workflow? And it's around real-time machine metrics and KPI monitoring. So as we get started here, we'll just get going with some introductions. So first I'd like to introduce Paul. Paul Sutter with Peakboard America. How are you doing today, Paul?
Hey, good. How are you?
Doing well, doing well. Thanks for joining. I want to just give a brief background on yourself as we get started.
Sure, yeah. I'm with Peakboard America since 2 years here in the US. Been with Peakboard in Germany before that, and I take care of the technical side of things here. So I do consulting and support.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thanks for joining us this morning. And so we've been working together for a while now, so it's always a pleasure. And again, my name is Matt Minner. I'm a Director of Technical Services at Catalyst Connection, or the MEP in Southwest Pennsylvania. And we'll dive into a little bit more there. So we do have a range of folks on the call this morning. And so just want to give a brief introduction on Catalyst Connection as well, and the type of work that we do and the type of services that we offer. So Catalyst Connection is a nonprofit focused on serving small and medium manufacturers in Southwest Pennsylvania. We're based in Pittsburgh and cover the surrounding communities there, which consists of over 2,700 manufacturers with over 80,000 active workers in that workforce. So a very significant presence in Southwest Pennsylvania. And to those who may be joining us from beyond Southwest Pennsylvania, we are part of a larger network across the state. We are one of 7 centers, 7 industrial resource center program centers in Pennsylvania that receive state funding, and we're all part of a larger national network, the Manufacturing Extension Partnership. And this network consists of nonprofit organizations focused on serving small and medium manufacturers. So no matter where you're located as a manufacturer, there's an organization like Catalyst Connection that you can call on to leverage resources that are available to you. And so what we do, we focus around consulting, training, technology adoption, which was my focus area and what we're going to focus on today in our call with Peakboard, and workforce development. And a lot of these services and programs that we have, we receive funding that we're able to bring to bear towards for you as a manufacturer to help you in your implementation projects. And so the role Catalyst plays, we really work to be that trusted advisor for manufacturers. We are agnostic when it comes to technologies and services and how that direction goes. And we have a wide range of resources that we can bring to bear. And to focus a little tighter, we do have 2 specific programs, both of which can help working towards visual management, dashboarding, and working with our partners at Peakboard. One is Digital Bridge, which is focused here in Southwest Pennsylvania, focused around advanced manufacturing technologies. We're able to provide assessments and technical assistance, a lot leading towards, say, perhaps evaluating KPIs and processes to identify how visual management can better assist your workforce, and then also access to capital to make those investments. And then we're also just launching a program under the Department of Energy, and this one has a specific focus on smart manufacturing. So the program is actually called Smart PA. And this one focuses around that technology with a strong emphasis on workforce training, working with a partner, a Digital Foundry in New Kensington, and then also some similar resources around assessments and technical assistance. Access to capital, this will have a $5,000 mini grants associated with it that are available. And this one is actually available statewide across the Commonwealth of Pennsylvania. And narrowing in closer to handing it over to Paul and Peakboard, But just to touch a little further on the technology services that we offer, we really help in that front end identification of opportunities, evaluation, prioritization, and exploring of applicable technology, supporting and managing a vendor selection process, et cetera. We do have a range of technology focuses, but again, what we're talking about today is that visual management and dashboarding, which we've developed some new services to offer in that space as well. So we look forward to connecting with many of you on that. And then lastly, just touching on, before we hand it over to Paul, here's a couple example client implementations that we have here in Southwest Pennsylvania with Peakboard. On the left is actually a heavy machinery manufacturer. Did a lot, is really wanted to bring the workforce closer to job status and where they're at on a given week. And then on the right-hand side, that's actually a machine shop. And so each one of those is representing the capacity of a given machine. So this is all great work that's been done in conjunction with Peakboard. And so with that, I'd like to hand it over to Paul, and he's going to dive into Peakboard this morning and also include a live demo. So I'll make you the presenter here, Paul. There we go. Looks like it finally kicked over.
All right, so you should be able to see my screen now.
Yes, we are.
Perfect. Okay, so yeah, also hello from me. I have a little presentation on Peakboard before I jump into the live demo of our solution. So first of all, what is Peakboard and what are we trying to achieve with our solution? We want to bring real-time data in industrial workplaces, meaning that all the different data sources that are out there, all over your company network, we want to bring them together and make them accessible for the workers on the shop floor, and also make it possible for them to interact with that information. So not only see and retrieve the information, but also send out information. A little bit on background on who we are. Peakboard is a German-based company. We started in 2016 in Stuttgart, Germany, before opening our US office for Peakboard America here in Chicago. Our team is currently around 45 employees, and we have more than 350 customers worldwide. We also work very intensively with partners like Catalyst, for example, and we have more than 30 partners. Some of our customers, you can see here, those are the bigger ones that you might know, but we also work with a lot of small and mid-sized companies. And one thing that I do want to point out here is that you can already see Peakboard is able to be implemented in very different industries. Since our solution is very flexible, you can use it in manufacturing, in logistics, and all sorts of processes. How does Peakboard work? So basically, again, we are trying to put that information out to the people where they are working. You can see here on the left side, we have a little bit of an overview screen, with KPIs, maybe some company news. And then on the right side here, that's really what we focus on is manufacturing and logistics with target actual comparison, time to, load trucks for a gate. And yeah, that's what we do. So a little bit of background to the IT infrastructure. I'll just go over this briefly, but basically we are able to tap into the company network and the production network and bringing all those different sets of information together. I'll get more into detail on this. Just wanted to give you a broad overview of the infrastructure here. Our value proposition is that our solution makes it super easy and agile to create these interfaces. This is achieved by a low-code, no-code platform, which means that we want to enable everyone to be able to create their own dashboards. And we're able to connect over 200 different data sources from ERP systems over PLCs up to databases or even network shared files, bring them all together and then display them where they're needed. probably are familiar with the automation pyramid. So Peakboard is able to connect to pretty much every level of the automation pyramid. Again, I talked about PLCs, ERP systems, MES, and so on. And the nice thing is that we can not only read, but also write back into most of the data sources that we are able to connect to, which means that we can not only display the information, but also update systems, send feedback, and therefore making actual applications and not just visual dashboards. Some of our customer success stories, some use cases here. This is for one of our customers, BWI. They produce suspensions and they are using Peakboard for an hour-by-hour overview. In this case, we connected to OPCOA, which is a protocol for machines. And we were able to get end-of-line information about how many parts were produced, how many of them were good parts, and how many were reject parts. And therefore, we're using this information, we were able to create that hour-by-hour overview, showing the workers what they should be doing, what they are doing, and then also why they're not doing what they should be doing, whether that's machine error or parts missing or just any type of reason. We were able to log that and show it to them, which not only improved their morale because they saw that they were actually achieving their goals for each hour, but also helped them to understand what they could be doing better in order to achieve that goal if they didn't reach it for a certain hour. Another use case is with one of our biggest customers, Bosch. They are using Peakboard in the semiconductor production in Germany, and what they did was they created an overview for the different areas for the semiconductor production. So here you can see the individual workstations with their current status, represented by a color. You can see the color coding at the bottom here. And this was implemented in pretty much every area that they had workstations in, and it allowed the shift leaders to understand what the individual stations are currently working on, whether they need help, and again, allowed them to react to errors more quickly and improve efficiency. So how does Peakboard work? Peakboard is a all-in-one solution. We have a software part and a hardware part. The software is called the Peakboard Designer, and using the Peakboard Designer, you create your dashboards on your computer. This is where you would connect to your data sources, create your design, add any type of logic that you want to. And after you're done with that, you upload the project to the hardware part of our solution, which is the Peakboard box. And the Peakboard box after that executes a runtime, which means that everything happens on there and also stays on there. This is especially important for companies that have, critical IT systems that they don't want to open up to the internet. Our solution works completely in a completely closed off network. We are able to also connect to online data sources, but it's not necessary. And also this means that no additional infrastructure is required. We don't need any servers or any cloud type environment. Everything happens on the Peakboard box in our runtime. Here you can see the Peakboard box connected to a screen. We have an HDMI output. This means that we can connect to any type of screen, whether that's a small touch screen or a big screen that you would put up above a production line. We also have USB inputs, so you can connect things like a barcode reader, mouse and keyboard, RFID readers, and therefore create interactive dashboards. These are some of the data sources that we can connect to. And then one other thing I did want to show is that you are not bound to the Peakboard box itself. We actually also have a bring your own device option where any type of Windows device can also execute our runtime. This means that you can, for example, deploy this on any type of industrial PC that you might already have in place. You can use tablets and make the solution even more interactive or suitable to your use case. Here is an actual example of how Peakboard can be used. So this is an overview of a production line with multiple workstations. These workstations could be automated or manual. In this example, station 5 and 6 are automated, so they don't need the individual dashboards at the workstation, whereas station 1 through 4 are manual workstations. And at these manual workstations, the workers can start a process, stop a process, and they can also report any type of issue. So what happens when they press on a button is not only do we display this on the overview screen, we also log this information for further analytics. For example, what were our top reasons for downtime? How long was that downtime? And then another thing we can do is send out automated messages via, for example, mail, Teams, text message, whatever communication platform your company uses, we can send out information. For example, that this tool is missing. We can also implement escalation stages where after a certain amount of time this message is sent out. Let's say, for example, 10 minutes of downtime, that's when we send that message, or we can also send it to someone else after a certain amount of time. And that just allows to improve the efficiency because you reduce downtimes. One other thing is in this use case, we are connected again to the manual workstation. So this input is sent to the overview Peakboard box via direct communication. We are also connected to the PLCs for station 5 and 6, which are automated stations. And then we're also connected to the ERP system, in this case, SAP, displaying the target quantity and the current order that's being worked on. So you can already get an idea of the benefit of bringing together all these different data sources and creating an interactive dashboard. So that's one example here. One other thing I did want to mention is the Peakboard Hub. So the Peakboard Hub is another piece to our solution. You don't have to use the Peakboard Hub, but basically what it allows you is a centralized management platform that can be accessed via a web interface. So it's basically a website that you open up, and in that Peakboard Hub, you can see an overview of all the different dashboards that you have deployed throughout your shop floor. So you could see what your individual lines are doing. You can see what the individual workstations are doing, all from a centralized platform. And this is obviously also available for a web view, a mobile view. So you could also open this up on your phone. The Peakboard Hub does come with an online or an on-prem version. The online, or depending on your network, you could access this from anywhere. I mean, the online version, definitely. The on-prem version, you'd have to be in a VPN. But this just makes it a lot more interactive and also allows you to see what's happening in your facility from anywhere. You can also persist data in the Peakboard Hub, so it does come with a database to historize that information that we're gathering with the Peakboard boxes. Here again, you can see a comparison between the Peakboard, or just like an all-over view with the designer, the Peakboard box, and the bring your own device, and then the Peakboard Hub. So these are the three parts that are part of our solution. Again, you do need the Peakboard designer to create your dashboards, and then either a Peakboard box or the Peakboard BYOD license, and then the Peakboard Hub is optional. This is the whole ecosystem, again, in an overview here. And you can see some more templates here, but what I actually want to do now is jump into the Peakboard Designer and give you a short live demo of how Peakboard works. So let me do that. Yeah, so we're in the Peakboard Designer now. Again, this can be installed on any type of Windows device, and this is where you create your dashboards. The Peakboard Designer has a menu up top here where you can change the settings, upload your project to a Peakboard box, save that file. But then the Explorer is where it gets really interesting. So here you can add your data source, and I can just click on that and give you a quick overview of all the different data sources that we're able to connect to. So you can see we have documents, databases, hardware, Peakboard boxes where they can communicate with each other or store information in the Peakboard Hub. We have web data sources, and then also using extensions, you can either create your own data source for a specific system that you're using, or we also offer a service where we create that for you. So using the extensions, you can, for example, add MySQL database, Postgre, but then also we have an integration to JetGPT, and all sorts of data sources. So this is really helpful, and it's also very easy to customize Peakboard to your needs. So after adding your data, you can manipulate the data using a data flow. I'll get into that later, but basically what the data flow allows you is to aggregate, filter, change data types, and so on. So really manipulating the information that you're getting in order to display it in the way you want to. We also have variables where we can store information on the Peakboard box. We have single variables and lists. So this is when you're using scripts, for example, and you calculate something, you can put that result into a variable or a selected value. If you have a drop-down menu where you can select an order, for example, that would also be stored in a variable. And speaking of scripts, this is the next point here. So we have timer scripts that we can execute in a certain time interval or at a certain time. So for example, we could switch to a different screen during lunchtime. We could display, a huddle for the next shift, and that would be done through timer scripts. We have functions. The nice thing about these functions is they can also be triggered via the Peakboard box's web interface. So for example, if you're standing in front of a Peakboard box that is not connected to a touchscreen or mouse and keyboard, you could pull up the web interface on your phone, and using a shared function, you can switch the screen, or you can send out a message to one of your Peakboard boxes using a function. Global events is for when you are actually connected to a touchscreen and swipe, or you have inputs or script errors. We can also execute scripts, as well as on-screen activation after a data source is reloaded, or for controls. Next point here is the resources, where you can add a local resource, a network share resource, or web or cloud resources. These are the cloud providers that we currently support. And this allows you to add things like PDF files, pictures, and so on to also display on your dashboard. And the last thing here is the screens. So a screen is this right here. Think of it as a slide in a PowerPoint presentation. You can add as many screens as you want, and then either cycle through them in a set duration or based on a logic. For example, if a machine goes into an error state, we want to switch screens to a screen that shows us how to resolve that error or what to do next. Again, we can also switch to a different screen during shift breaks. And you can change the screen size based on whatever monitor you're using, and then add your design to the screen, which brings me to the controls up here. So these are all the different visual controls that you have to create your layout. So starting with text, we can add icons, charts, lists, interactive controls like buttons, drop-down menu I mentioned earlier, checkbox. We have media and documents where you can add PDFs, documents, and then others where we can generate a QR code, display a web page, HTML code, so web widget, Power BI, and a text ticker. So when you add your controls to the screen, you can see this area here changes depending on what control you have selected. So these are basically the properties. And for a text control, for example, I can change the font property. And then for the screen, I could change the background image or the background color. One thing I do want to show you for the control properties is we have conditional formatting here. So basically what this allows me to do is add simple if this then that rules. And once I have my data sources connected, I can select them in here and say if the value in a certain data source exceeds either a static threshold, or I could even connect this to another data source and say if, for example, the value of my SAP target is smaller than or greater than the actual value that I get from my machine, I want to change the background color for this text. So you can see super easy, no IT background required here to create interactive or logic within our dashboards. So getting to those data sources, this is actually where the live demo part would start. What I wanted to do today is connect to an ERP system, SAP in that case, connect to a machine via the OPC-UA protocol, and display target actual comparison. And then I want to store that information into a database, which would be the Peakboard Hub in that use case. So getting started with that, the first thing I do want to do is connect to my machine data. Again, this would be OPC-UA. I just select this data source and give it a name. So this would be my production data. For OPC-UA, I have to create a client certificate. So in here, I can just enter Peakboard for the client, for the certificate name, and then organization Peakboard again. Depending on what type of security you have, you might have to either import a certificate or create, a more extensive one. In this case, I can just use this and select that. Now I can reuse an existing connection because I've already stored that connection, and then connect to my OPC UA server. Oops, didn't select the right certificate here. Let's try that again. That looks better. And once I'm connected, I can already start browsing my subscriptions. So this is the information that I'm getting from that OPC UA server. And in here, I want to select the light barrier line 2 count. So I just select this, and I can enable a listener, which shows me live information from my machine. So currently the count for that light barrier is at 41. After clicking on OK, this data source gets created, and I can see that I have my production data here. I could just drag and drop this onto a screen, create a text box out of it, and display this information. But again, we want to do a target actual comparison. So let's get the target data, which would be in SAP in this case. So we have our production data. Let's create the target data source. Again, I have stored my credentials to the SAP system, and I can just enter those and then go in here and add my SQL statement. So this is the way that we query SAP. I can show you some more templates in here, but basically it's similar to SQL. We execute a function in this use case with import parameters, and then this would be the result. So if I load my data, I can see that I have multiple lines here with a target value. Once I click on OK, this also gets created as another data source, and I have my production and my target data. So let's continue with a little design for our dashboard and just add a rectangle here for the header. I want to also add a text that says, position this, production line A33, which is the line that we want to focus on today. I can align my text, change the font, and reposition this. And then you can already see I'm trying to focus on line A33 today, which means that out of the information we get from SAP here, I only want to focus on this. So what I can do is right click on it and then filter for rows containing this value. And what this will do is automatically create a data flow for me. I could also go ahead and just process data with data flow and then create that same filter step in there. This is just a shortcut if you go directly into the data source. So let's call this target data A33 and click on OK. And you can already see it creates this data flow for that data source. In here, I could do more steps, like for example, aggregate, I mentioned earlier. We can update the value, change the data type, and so on. So everything you need to manipulate your data, you can find in the data flows. We could also join different data sets. Yeah, once I'm done with it, I just click on OK. One thing I do want to mention is we can change the reload state up here. So right now, this reloads every time the data source reloads. We could change that to manual to trigger that reload via a button, for example. We can do it periodic or only on startup. But let's leave it on data flow source, because what we can see in here is that the reload state for this is set to periodic every 90 seconds. So every 90 seconds, this will be reloaded and then also trigger a reload of this data flow. Next thing I want to do is add another rectangle to create a bit of a design in here. And then actually, I also want to add the current time. So let me just add a time data source for that. We can just call this time and then drag and drop this onto the screen. In this case, it will automatically create a text box because it detects that there's no other logical way of displaying the time than in a text box. And I can position that as well and change the font. And then what I want to do here is, because this is the German or European way of displaying the time. I want to change this to US. So in here, I can go ahead and change it to hour, minute, and the AM, PM. And then we do month, day, year. And we can center this and display the time in the US format, and yeah, also have that in here. So next thing is creating the target actual comparison. For that, I would drag and drop this production data source onto the screen and then create a circular gauge. I can position this in here, and let me actually make this a little bit smaller and then try to center this in here. Okay, looks good. And then currently we're displaying the actual, and our maximum would be 100, which we want to change that to our target data, the filtered target data. So we can change that in here, and it's already going to only display me the value or the columns that make sense in this case. So after selecting this, we can see that this is our maximum now. And if we go in here, you can see that A33 wouldn't make sense as a value in this gauge. So it's not even giving me that option, which again, we're trying to make it as user-friendly as possible to create your dashboards. One other thing I do want to do is change the bar width to, let's try 50, and make this a little bit smaller, and then maybe add a header. So let's do that. Actual, change the font and the size of this text box. So we have our header in here, and maybe we can also change the font for the value, make that a bit bigger. And now if I click on preview, this will actually execute the dashboard. So now we're getting live data. Before that, while editing, you won't see live data because of resources. But now if I click on preview, this will show me live data. So this is where the machine is currently at, the count. This is, how far away it is from reaching its target, which if I remember correctly, the target for this line was 122. So it makes sense that 60 is roughly about half of that. 61 should be the actual health. And then we can see how this updates. So within 5 minutes, we were able to display live production data on a dashboard. And you could upload this to a Peakboard box now, and it would display that information. But let's add some more logic to this in the form of conditional formatting. So let's say if our production data, actually, yeah, if that production data is smaller than the target data, we want to change the filled color to orange to display or to show that we're still in the process here. So if I click on preview again, I can see that this condition will be met and the color of the bar should change to orange. There we see the color change to orange. Last thing I want to do now is add another rectangle here and display some historic information. Also show you how to historize that data. So what we can do now is add a button, and this button will historize the data every time we click on it. So for that, actually before I go into the script here, I have to add another data source in the form of the Peakboard hub list. Let's call this prod data history. And I have already prepared a list in here that shows me my historic data for this line A33. You can see the different dates in here with the parts produced. And I want to add to this list every time I click that button. One thing I did want to show you here in the Peakboard Hub is we make it really easy to already filter. Since the Peakboard Hub is part of our ecosystem, we can add filters, for example, where we say if the date is smaller than our current date, we want to not show that information or show that information. So makes it really easy to filter the data. And after adding that data source, we can already drag and drop this onto the screen and display it in the form of a column chart, for example. Now, one thing I do have to adjust here, because it always goes with the first logic or the first value that makes sense, which in this case is the ID, and we don't want this. We want the date and the parts. So after I select that, I can see how it adjusts. And then what I could do, for example, if I had a target that has to be met, I can add a threshold value. Let's say, for example, if the value in a individual row is smaller than 50, we want to change that chart or that column to red, and we also want to display this with a light blue. So after I do this, we can already see these are the days that we didn't meet our target, and those are the days that we did meet that target. Of course, I could also change this to a value from my data source. So in here, I could change this to the values in this table that I'm connected to. So let's do this. And then next thing is take part of actually historizing the data. So this is the script editor in here. You see you have a block mode and a script mode. The block mode this is the low code version of the scripting. So in here, if we want to, for example, publish to an external system, we just select our Peakboard hub and we want to add a row at the end. I just double click on this and it creates this block for me. And again, this block mode makes it really easy for you to create your own logic, because you just drag and drop these blocks onto the editor and then add your logic. And also it won't allow you to enter wrong values. So for example, I am going to get my data here from the production data. I want the light barrier line 2 count, which is a numeric value. And I shouldn't be able to connect this to the production line, which is a string value. So again, making it very easy for you to create your logic. I do want this to be connected to the parts, because this is the actual parts that I produce and that I want to write into my data source. In here, I'm just going to add a string, A33. And for the date, I'm just going to get my date as text and then change the format to month, day, year. Yep, and then I can already click on save and close, go into my preview again. And one thing I did forget to add is after adding a new value, because this only refreshes every 90 seconds, so we would have to wait for 90 seconds after I press the button, which we don't want to do. So let me add a, reload here. Production data history is what we are adding the value to, and then we want to reload that data source. So after I click on preview again, you can see that not only are we displaying the live data and the history data, if we click that button, it also adds new entries into here. So again, within the 10-15 minutes of this live demo, we were able to create this dashboard that we could already upload to a device and display and also interact with. Yeah, so this is the live demo part. I'm going to jump back into my presentation, jump over these and show you the action plan. So typically the way that we work with our customers is at first, we do a discovery call where we introduce Peakboard. Then we do a technical call where our customers could ask questions. We can talk about the systems that they have in place. We can create a proof of concept based on that information. And then something that we do offer are workshops. So the workshop consists of a prep call where we go through the systems and make sure that we're able to connect to them, and then an actual workshop day. This could be on-site or remote, And during the workshop days, so during those 8 hours, we are able to create something like I showed you right now with the customer system. So after that one day, we say you have a dashboard up and running. Not only do you have that dashboard up and running, but you also understand how we created it. And so you should be able to adjust it to your needs afterwards. If you ever want to change anything or add new features after that workshop day, you're able to do that. So, you can see a very quick time to implementation, super easy and flexible solution. And yeah, I think that's it. So we're jumping to questions now. I see that there are already some questions. Matt, how do you prefer me to go about the questions? You want me to stop sharing my screen or?
Yeah, I mean, you can just leave it for now.
Mhm.
So let's see. Yeah, we'll definitely. I posted in the chat there. So if anyone has any additional questions, feel free to please post them in the chat or in the questions poll. So I'll be watching those as we go through some of our initial questions. First, Paul, you talk about how the workshop day, and you went through the platform, which is very user friendly, but there is a lot to it, which
Mhm.
is great. It allows you to connect to so many data sources, and there's a lot of different ways you can go, a lot of intricacy that can come into it. So how have you seen, we've had great success with your workshops coming in, but with most of the clients and deployments, do they tend to have the Peakboard with a more of an IT person, or have you had success with whether it's just a production manager or the shop floor manager that's able to also take this on?
Yeah, so one of the reasons we're trying to make Peakboard as user-friendly as possible is because we know that resources in IT are always limited. I've never been to a company where they said, yeah, our IT person has time today. So that's why we really want to enable everyone to be able to create these dashboards. Obviously, depending on what type of data source you want to connect to, you at some point might need support from IT. But we really want to enable, the shift leaders and everyone who is interested in displaying information to be able to work with Peakboard.
Fantastic, fantastic. No, that's great. Um, Next, I mean, are there still any, ongoing developments with Peakboard and maybe new capabilities that are being worked towards? Because I know there's constant updates and things. Maybe share some, things that are coming, or some requests that you've had that are in the works.
Hmm. Yeah, so like every other software solution, I think Peakboard will never be fully developed. We're constantly adding new data sources, new features, whether that's improving the user interface or adding new, building blocks for the script, or something that we recently added was gradients for charts, and we're adding to our solution. We're also making it more stable, and again, we're adding new data sources. Something that we just recently released was the connection to the backoff PLCs. I mean, basically, they're IPCs, but we're able to connect to that now. And then using the extensions, there will also be new data sources constantly. So um, like we're trying to release a major update every quarter, whether that's again UI improvements or just features. But yeah, that's roughly how our release cycle looks like.
Okay, great. And let's see, just checking for questions here. Uh, One more that we have, there's the workshop day. You said it's, one period. How does that process typically go moving forward with that company, especially if they go to make some adjustments, maybe need some additional help? What resources do they have once they're implemented and up and running, and maybe are in need of some additional assistance?
Mhm. Yeah, so first of all, we offer a wide range of online resources. We have a YouTube channel where we post tutorials. We have a very extensive help website. We have templates portal where we constantly upload new templates for ideas and logic as well. But then also with the Peakboard box, you get full support. So if you ever have any questions, just shoot us an email and we'll try and help you as good as possible. But then also after the workshop day, if you feel like you need more help or you actually don't have the resources to continue working on the dashboards yourself, we also offer consulting.
Okay, very good, very good. Well, and I think not seeing any other questions. Just one last opportunity. Is there any recent use cases, or especially around our focus area with the small and medium manufacturers? Any particular use cases or engagements you've had with small manufacturers that you might highlight as unique, for maybe they didn't think would be a good fit and it ended up being so, or they really were able to see a lot of value. Anything that comes to mind?
Yeah, so actually one of the use cases you showed earlier on that right picture, I think it was kind of small, so I don't know if the audience was able to see that, but this was a machine shop where we were able to connect to CNC machines and get live data on whether the machine is running or not running, if it's running, what job it's currently working on. We were thinking of adding more features like also having workers badge in and out to see who is currently responsible for an individual job. But I think this is kind of a new area for us because we typically work with production and logistics area companies, and CNC is kind of its own industry in that. So I think this is definitely something that we'll put more work into in the future, being able to connect to all the different providers that there are out there. So Haas, Fanuc, I don't know, all the different CNC machine producers. I think DMG Mori is also up there. And yeah, create more use cases for those small, tool shops.
Well, very good, very good. Well, thank you, everyone, for attending, and thank you, Paul, for your time today. This is great information from Peakboard, and so definitely, please reach out to us at Catalyst Connection, or reach out to Paul and the team there at Peakboard with any questions you may have. And this will also be recorded and posted up on our Catalyst Connection YouTube channel, as well as Peakboard. I'm sure you'll have it posted in a number of areas as well.
For sure.
So just want to thank everyone again for joining, and thanks for the time, Paul. It was a great presentation.
Thank you.
All right, have a great day, everyone.